Off top, according to National Geographic, some grizzly bears in the northern Rockies can eat up to 40,000 moths a day. Moths. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. I'm joined as always by Charlie Kravitz, but we have a very special guest here to join us today to talk about this historic NBA news. It is Director of Sports Journalism at Northwestern, longtime sports writer, and NBA or basketball Hall of Famer, J.A. Adande. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I love having that addition to my intro, but usually it comes without the MF part.
Nah.
That should be how I introduce myself from now on.
Agreed. It's the damn Professional Basketball Hall of Fame. Like, I guess we had Champ Bailey on the show. Mm-hmm. It's the only other Hall of Famer, and Jason Goff, of course. Those are the only. So you're the third Hall of Famer that we've had on the show. We welcome you. You wrote for the LA Times, the Washington Post. LA Times seems like that experience is going to help us a lot. I think I want to start with you with the history of this, and if you ever remember being this shocked.
We should mention the name of what we're shocked about.
All right, Charlie, I guess you're right. We do have to tell people, but I assume that everybody knows because everybody was either up when they got hit with this crazy news or woke up to a bunch of text messages like you. I guess that's a good place to start. J.A., how did you find out about it? And of course, how long did it take you to believe that it was real? Because I'm sure your reaction was the same as mine and Charlie's and everyone else. Like, no way that this is happening. The Luka Doncic trade.
Or Anthony Davis. Luka Doncic is a Laker. Yeah. Anthony Davis is a Maverick.
Yeah, it was, so I'm in Central Time, so sometime after midnight, I was actually on the phone, and then I saw something in the main group chat that I'm in, and it was prefaced by, this is real, but I still didn't believe it. I still said, okay, I got to go somewhere. And then I went on ESPN.com, and lo and behold, there it was. And so I said, okay, I guess this is the thing. So I got confirmation on a real website, not just on social media, but it was still hard to fathom, we'll put it that way.
What about, so is this, I guess the Dallas angle is a good place to start because that's the one that's hardest to explain. Can you help us make sense of it other than it's just stupid?
What I finally arrived at is that, and I figured, Domonique, you'd appreciate this from your sports labor background and familiarity with collective bargaining agreements, is that this is the old CBA clashing with the new CBA. And the old CBA, which had provisions such as the Derrick Rose rule, which allowed for these supermax contracts if you'd achieved honors early on in your career while on your rookie deal or even on your second contract, that could increase the amount or the worth of the contract, right? And no one's had a start like Luka Doncic with 5 first-team All-NBAs, right? So he was in line for maxi contracts of upwards of around $350 million. And I think when you couple that with how restrictive having a contract on your books like that can be with this new era of the second apron and all those ways that it restricts your team building options, that the Mavericks decided he wasn't worth it at that price. And I get this notion, the irony is the whole concept of clashing CBAs, I first was made aware of it by Mark, looking back in the old CBA when he broke up his championship team because he was afraid of having old contracts in the new CBA. And so as he broke up the team, that was the reason why. And I think he was premature. I think he outsmarted himself, should have given his team a chance to defend it. But now we're in this.
I appreciate that you are putting some logic to this because I've been trying to fight an uphill battle and suggest, and I've come to a couple different conclusions. That one's an interesting one because I do know that in every league, I think most prominently in football, I remember when the rookie wage scale came in and then the way that you built a team completely changed. So in every year, every league, the CBA changes the way that it's smart to build a team. So this, in your view, might be the Mavs believing that they're being smart about how they're building their team ahead of time, because the only other conclusion I came to is that there is something which requires a great deal of speculation, that there's something else in this story about Luka, about the relationships there, about his body, about something that we don't know, because there's no damn CBA where it becomes a bad idea to have a 5-time All-NBA player and not lock him up. Like, I understand,
about to enter his prime.
I understand that you don't want to have the contract restrictions, but I would love to have my team's fortunes restricted by how good Luka Doncic could be.
Yeah, and let me lay out the pros and cons of what we've learned in the last 12 hours of this. They've gotten the beginning of the Empty the Notebook piece, where it was reported by Tim McMahon that Luka was pushing 270, drinks too much, something broke down in their contract negotiations in the time in the last month since his calf injury, when they were 19-10 and they've gone 7-13 since. That led to this type of trade. On the other side of it, in the pros column, they went to the finals last year, and he has the second highest playoff scoring average in NBA history behind Michael Jordan on a team that we did not expect to go to the finals, that beat the Thunder, who were on a 70-win pace up until last week, and he seemed like the Thunder's kryptonite, and then walked over, albeit very fatigued, Minnesota team that we also thought had Anthony Edwards' potential future of the league. So it's really shocking that this guy at age 25 would get moved, even if it's for a top 10 player in Anthony Davis, but there were no picks attached, and it seemed like a get-out-of-jail-free card for the Lakers.
And Anthony Davis isn't even young. It's like they got a worse player.
Yeah.
With a shorter window. And that's, I think, is what, because normally in these trades, right, Jay, you're accumulating a lot of picks. So you're building for the future if you give away a current star. But it's so rare that the exchange is that you give away the player who is better and has a longer runway.
Well, there's a couple old NBA maxims, and it's funny because in some ways each team violated this. Mm-hmm. So this comes from a different era in the league, but it used to be you don't trade big for small, you don't trade you don't trade young for old. And so in this case, the Lakers traded bigger for smaller, but I think we'd all agree, especially in this era, that doesn't bother you that much. If you're sitting on the Lakers side, you're not saying, well, we got smaller, although it is a problem, right? All of a sudden, they're very thin in the front court. So it does weaken their team in that regard. But the Mavericks traded younger for older. And that's supposedly a no-no, especially, again, when you've got, an unprecedented younger about to be 26. He hasn't even gotten to his prime. That's what's amazing to me, is that you're bailing on him before you've seen the best of him. But apparently they felt it wasn't the worth the risk. So we're still kind of wondering about the why. All we can do now is kind of hypothesize about the why. But I do think the how is easily explicable by something another person once told me in the NBA, is that all transactions begin with familiarity. And in Nico Harrison, we had someone who was familiar with Rob Pelinka. Yes. Remember, Nico's background was he was a Nike rep, and he was like the liaison between Kobe Bryant and Nike. And so as such, he had a lot of dealings with Rob Pelinka. So they were very familiar. And he was around Anthony Davis a lot too. So he felt comfortable with Anthony Davis. So how this got done, I think that familiarity factor between Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka, the general manager of the Lakers, and Anthony Davis made this, both facilitated this and made it more palatable for Nico Harrison and the Mavs.
All right, it seems like I might be the only one here between the three of us who has a little bit of skepticism about LeBron's story, that he was eating cake in New York, and when he found out about all this, it was just a complete surprise.
Well, I will say this. The fact that no one seemed to know about it, the fact that this didn't get out at all, does, to me, indicate how tight it was kept, and including the possibility that LeBron was not in the loop.
What do you think it says about their relationship with the Lakers' future with Clutch?
I think they're ready to move on, and this does not appear to be a Clutch-oriented move, right? I don't think Rich Paul would sign up to have Anthony Davis out of LA and LeBron to have, his main wing man that he won a championship with out of LA. So, I mean, this whole thing is about down the road, right? I don't think this is done. I mean, it could help them win a championship this year. I don't think the Lakers, especially again, as they're thinner up front, what are they going to do with Jokic, for example, if they face Denver in the playoffs? I mean, Anthony Davis guarded him as well as you can guard him, and Jokic still gave them the business. So gave him that work. So, I don't know how I can't see them going past Denver. I can't see them going past, if you got a healthy Chet Holmgren for Oklahoma City, if you get that matchup. So I don't think it catapults them, but you are set. You have that superstar that you need post LeBron. You got to have one of the 6 best players in the league if you're going to win a championship in the NBA. And I'm not even sure LeBron is one of the 6 best players in the league at this stage. But now when you got Luka Doncic out there, you have that. So clearly this is looking at really down the road and the next superstar for the Lakers.
The combination of their new expanded window and us accepting that Clutch was on the outside and found out about this deal like us leads me to believe that there's also a possibility that LeBron could be moved.
One thing I will say is that I read somewhere that Anthony Davis waived the trade kickers. So he had a salary bump that was supposed to kick in, and he agreed to waive it because it helps the Mavericks with their flexibility. So, at some point he was looped in, right? So I think that was agreed to before the deal was done. I'm not sure it necessarily would have had to have been. The Clippers did that with Chris Paul. When the Clippers traded for Chris Paul, he agreed ahead of time that he was going to opt in for the final year of his contract. So it gave them a little certainty. So actually, that makes you wonder if Rich Paul notified LeBron early, right? If they had to do that bit of paperwork to make sure that he wasn't going to accept the trade kicker or that he would waive the trade kicker. So, Rich Paul knew before LeBron knew, and you wonder how quickly he informed LeBron, hey, your boy's out.
Yeah.
Is it possible that and I guess I can make a statement instead of framing it as a form of a question, because I kind of think that while we all accept there's going to be more to find out about Luka Doncic, I find it really hard to believe that it's just because he was overweight and he eats and smokes or whatever a lot, that's why they wanted to move on from him. Like, there's more to it. Like, there's some sort of interpersonal dynamics in that building that I think have fallen through, and that the Lakers will now have. Obviously, it's a problem that it seems that anybody would want to accept for the talent that they're getting. But I guess, what are the prospects for Luka Doncic and the Lakers going forward?
Well, Dom, I think part of it is the new ownership, and that's a big thing. Is that there's a new sheriff in
Dallas,
town,
right?
In Dallas, with the new ownership, with the Adelson and that ownership group. It's hard for me to imagine Mark Cuban would have agreed to this, given his history, given how much he loved Luka and Dirk Nowitzki before him. I can't. And notice you haven't seen Mark Cuban's name almost anywhere in any of the coverage of this. So this really certifies that Mark Cuban is completely out of the loop in the decision-making process. And again, a reminder that there really wasn't a pre-existing relationship. Luka is someone that came before this group, the current front office really was in place and management was in place. So again, a breakdown of the lack of familiarity and clearly the lack of a relationship, the lack of a feeling that we're tied together in this. I would have thought you wouldn't have minded hitching yourself to Luka Doncic. You've got one of the great young talents in the NBA, but clearly they did not feel married to him.
Is there a reason why you think they didn't do a full-on
this is the question.
Auction? Yeah. Why they didn't shop Luka publicly, and why we all found out that he was available the same time we found out he was being traded?
And it was reported by Stein too that he didn't ask for the trade.
Right.
Yeah.
Real G's move in silence.
Yeah.
And it's usually the biggest deals, the ones that actually come true are the ones, as Bobby Bacala said in The Sopranos, you don't hear it coming, right? When the end comes, you don't hear it coming. I recently did a Sopranos rewatch. So I think the desire to keep things quiet, that they didn't want this to get messy, even if it meant they wouldn't get the best possible deal, right? So look how messy the Jimmy Butler thing is, right? I mean, do you want a situation like that, like what's going on in Miami with Jimmy Butler, what kind of sprouted up in Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox? So I think, again, that relationship where Nico Harrison felt that if I do this with Rob Pelinka and also with somebody that I know, we can keep this quiet and we can get it done. Because imagine the outward. Can you get this deal done if it gets out in Dallas? How do you think that would go over in Dallas?
Fair point.
If we're going to the phones on their local radio stations and it becomes too much of an uproar. So I think the reason that you didn't have this very public shopping or even rumors and whispers that the Mavs were looking to do a deal is that if they wanted to do this, it had to be something that could be done quietly.
So that all makes a ton of sense. But doesn't this just feel like a terrible trade for the Mavericks? Like just at the baseline of it, like, and I don't think there are any winners from this because Nico Harrison has come out and like all the stories have come back out about him pitching Steph Curry for Nike and calling him Seth and giving him Kevin Durant's PowerPoint. His interview at the Dallas Morning News with Brad Townsend, where he basically said that he was texting Pelinka about this. And at one point, Pelinka said, "You're joking, right?" Before saying they could come to a deal. So like I feel like there will be mess on both sides, but when you just get to the brass tacks of it, I think we know that Luka was probably difficult for them to work with. But even with that said, this has to be one of the most lopsided talent trades we've seen in recent NBA history.
Yeah, it's a huge swing for Nico Harrison. The one thing is that you look so far, the Kyrie deal worked out. The moves he made at the trade deadline last year worked out, and they went to the NBA Finals, which was something we didn't really see for this team, right? So his vision worked out better than any of us envisioned for that. So if you're a Mavericks fan, you just have to trust that his way can work because we've seen it work pretty recently, right? That's the only thing you can hang your hat on. I will say this. We were all very critical of the Clippers for letting Paul George go, right? Yeah. And right now, I don't think they're regretting that too much. I'm not saying these are identical situations, but there are times where we can all get ahead and say, how can you make this move? Right. And then, again, they know better than we do. We all have to admit that. There are things that they know. They have the better relationship. They've seen all the medical reports and all that. And they've seen they've witnessed the behavior that we haven't seen. And so they're clearly comfortable that they don't want to bet on Luka Doncic in the future, not at that rate, at $350 million.
That's generally my assessment, is like the people that we think are geniuses are not as genius as we think they are, and the people that we think are like morons are not as dumb as we think they are. It's normally they land somewhere in the middle, and there's normally a really reasonable, logical trail. That's why I'm having a hard time with this one, because I can't find the reasonable, logical trail. The last time this happened in the NBA, and I was obviously wrong, was like the Gobert trade, where I was like, this makes no sense, and they had a good run, and then they traded away Towns, and I was like, that's dumb, that's going to hurt them, and it's going to really help the Knicks, and I was right about that. So it feels like you never really know, but it's normally some logic behind it. Yeah. The one thing you brought up earlier that sparked my mind was oftentimes in these free agent situations, and I know this isn't a free agent situation, but oftentimes in free agency, the first big domino falls and a bunch of other things fall into place. So, like, do you think this impacts what happens?
And with trades, too.
Yeah. Do you think this impacts what happens with Jimmy Butler and De'Aaron Fox and other guys who are obviously going to be on the move soon?
Well, I think the one thing is that, again, if people feel like the Mavericks didn't get enough, then it becomes easier to lowball or to at least not go overboard with your offers. A lot of people thought that once that Rudy Gobert thing went down, that was the baseline, right? You have to get, 5 first-round picks down the road, and that anyone, above Rudy Gobert, no one, I think, would have Rudy Gobert in the top 10 of players. So anytime a top 10, 15 guy is going to move, that should be the bare minimum. Well, in this case, it wasn't. But also you had a bigger star. The one thing I like about this for the Mavericks is it is a known entity. So everyone thinks that Utah won the trade with Minnesota by getting all those picks. Well, okay, how many Defensive Player of the Year awards have they had so far, right, from those picks? How many All-Star appearances? Like we don't know what those picks are going to become. I'm not a big picks guy. I've got that Rams attitude, I think, when it comes to the picks, similar to where the Miami Heat have been over the years, right? The Miami Heat have traditionally not been a team built through the draft, and look at the success that they've had over the last 10, 15 years or during the entire Pat Riley era, right? So I know a lot of us have come to worship at the altar of picks, and a lot of people love how many picks, say, Sam Presti is amassed in Oklahoma City. But I'm most impressed that they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I know they got a bunch of picks to go with it. But the whole reason they're contending for a championship is they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I'm all about getting the players. So the question is Anthony Davis that guy?
And that's the interesting thing, because, it's like picks and prospects just leave the option open that it can be a home run, which is like the Sam Presti thing. Like if you do draft your 4th MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is an incredible fact of it, but you can also get the Cason Wallace's, the Jalen Williams's, open the door to have the record for a Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, who's doing the drafting, right? So with Utah, Danny Ainge has a great drafting track record,
Mhm.
right? I mean, he basically put that championship team in Boston together. So yeah, big part of it is who's doing the drafting.
Yeah. I just was as you were talking about Nico Harrison, I was looking at his tenure. He's had some wild up and downs. I didn't even realize, because he started by letting Jalen Brunson walk and not giving him the contract that Rick Brunson initially wanted. And then he pulled off drafting Derek Lively, trading for Daniel Gafford, trading for PJ Washington, signing for Klay Thompson, and putting a roster with chasers and rim protectors around Luka that allowed him to bring him to the finals last year. So he has been swings and hits and swings and misses in a really unique way in the NBA ecosystem.
Yeah, and I was thinking, who would be the players? Who else could they have gotten, right? If we're saying, they should have shopped him around, remember, it's got to be one of the big salary guys, right? In order to make the trade work under the CBA. Do you go for Steph Curry? Could Golden State even entertain that? I don't think it's 100% off the table if you're thinking, okay, he's been our guy, the foundation of the modern franchise, but where's it going right now? And we have to think about the future.
That'd be so funny. Yeah, I mean, that's funny to me because, like, my football brain thinks of the NBA as different as far as it's not.
Right.
While the players do say it's a business, it does feel a little bit, to the point you're making, it's relational. And your top guy, you don't do that to your top guy. You pay Kobe a couple years extra. Maybe you trade Klay away, but you don't do that to Steph. And Luka was the Steph of Dallas, and I still
25 years old.
I don't know,
unbelievable.
I don't know how.
And again, a franchise that had just had Dirk for the entirety of his career, right?
And it was just in the finals.
You think you're going to go from 20 years of Dirk to 20 years of Luka?
It feels like this. There's so many directions that this conversation can go, but I can't take any of the other parts of the conversation seriously because I can't get past the fact that they traded this guy who is on pace to be one of the best players ever in the league. At 25 years old, they traded him, and I can't accept all the reasons that I'm hearing. There has to be more.
Well, that's the thing, because even with the weight, like, he just walks by people, and it's not like it wears off in the playoffs. Like, he walks by people in the playoffs. He gets where he wants on the floor, and it's like, it's incredibly special. And like you were talking about other places, they called. According to Sam Amick, they called one other team and made an offer, and that offer was turned down. I'm sure it was something ridiculous. But in my head, do you think of the three guys he probably wasn't going to get traded for? It's Jokic, Wembanyama, and SGA, and that is probably it. Like, you could have called.
Right. Do you feel like Giannis would have been in play?
Giannis, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum?
I think so.
All three of those.
I'd listen.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
if I'm Milwaukee, if I'm not sure I can keep Giannis, and if I want to get younger, I feel like I would have listened.
I get you. Yeah, I would definitely listen. I probably would want to pull a trigger on that trade. But my only pushback is you need to have some assurance that he's going to sign long term. And the Lakers feel like LA, they feel comfortable that he's going to sign long term. You send Luka to Milwaukee, he's got a year and a half left on his deal. You don't have the pressure of the Supermax deal now to like money whip him in the stand. I could understand being hesitant because you have a chance of keeping Giannis. I feel like it's less likely because of the relationship. It's less likely to keep. And the same thing with Boston. Boston is slightly different.
Or Minnesota.
Boston's so good. Like, I wouldn't trade. I know you think I'm stupid for this, but I wouldn't trade Luka for Tatum.
No, I'm just like, I think you make the call if you're Nico Harrison.
I wouldn't trade Luka for Tatum.
I'm with you, Dom.
Yeah.
I wouldn't break up Boston, even though he's better than any player on their roster. You just beat him, and what you have works.
Right.
And I don't think you need to get risky. Yeah. So no, I would not trade just based on what they have and how it's proven that it's worked. You alluded to something. I'm thinking. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Luka clearly can be the foundational player for the Lakers in the future, but can he be the face of the franchise in the way that LeBron has been, Kobe, Magic, Shaq? These guys were all very charismatic people. And I'm not sure Luka has quite that engagement, right? It's quite that charisma. It's funny. I think of the most memorable thing he said, and it might be part of the reason that he's no longer a Maverick. There was a post-game interview where he had some incredible game, a 30-point triple-double or something like that. And he talked about how he was looking forward to having a beer afterward. Yeah. That was how he was going to celebrate. And I'm sure the Mavericks didn't want to hear that. But I feel like it's actually kind of relevant as to how we got here. Yeah. Is that he is a guy that wants to sit around and drink beers. And I don't think the Mavs are cool with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that is going to play in LA where you can't just be great. You have to be one of the, think about it. The Lakers have had not only all-time players, but all-time personalities in the history of the league.
So I would flip that and ask you that, because of the Lakers stuff. Like, he might not be as conditioned, but he's also like, he's a killer, particularly in postseason basketball. I'm just wondering how that connects in the post. Like, Kobe's the most popular Laker of younger generations by a mile, even over Magic, over Shaq. He's totally connected. And Luka's, when I think of Luka's signature moment, it's him step back over Gobert yelling, "You can't guard me," as he like vanquished up in the playoffs.
Or maybe that look at Devin Booker at the free throw line.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how much that connects with Kobe fans in LA.
Yeah, I think that your point about him not being like outwardly social is a fair one, but I do think that he has a distinct character, and that's what they need.
Doble queso.
You know what I mean? Like, he's not Jason Tatum, which, like, Jason Tatum is a really good player. I don't mean this as disrespect, but Jason Tatum has.
But it's dope.
We talk about this a lot on this show. Is like the early professionalization of like sports and how the youth athletes all try to mimic this, like, I can be on a Wheaties box situation. Whereas I think Luka actually being different from that does have a huge bit of value. Like, I don't think marketing Luka or connecting with the fans, second language or not, I don't see that as a problem at all. Mm-hmm. Because I do think that what would be harder to market is if he was one of those guys who seems like they came out of a basketball factory. Luka's got personality. Yeah. Luka's going to cook them and say he wants a beer and smoke a cigarette, be a little pudgy, and people will absolutely love that as long as he's still cooking on the floor. He doesn't have to give long, interesting interviews. He has a thing that is distinct to Luka.
Yeah.
I mean, put it this way, Shohei Ohtani is loved in LA.
Yeah.
But he doesn't own the city the way that Kobe did, right? And obviously, clearly, a language barrier. That's not an issue for Luka.
But I wouldn't say that Luka is like Shohei. Like, what do we know about Shohei? Like, he had a gambling scandal. Like, we don't know.
A cute dog.
Yeah, we don't know Shohei as a personality. He don't give us faces on the diamond. Yeah. He doesn't like talk in that way. Like, I think that's the thing that matters is Luka has a personality that you can attach to, and then it can become.
He's got some modern Iverson to him. Didn't want to practice. Total killer on the floor. That's like sort of who, like, his on-floor persona is sort of what defines Luka, or at least as from the fan perspective.
Yeah, I think it's just that he has a persona.
Yeah.
You know, like, he has something that it's more than just a basketball player. I think that's like AD. I feel like it's harder to market than Luka would have been, because AD is like, yeah, I'm really good at basketball. Sometimes I get hurt. It's not very fun.
It's interesting though, but I think his lack of desire to be the guy to take on those responsibilities is another reason maybe the Lakers were. I mean, A, yeah, it's Luka, but B, the reason they didn't make him the future. Just little things like it's funny. I was told that AD liked to do his press conferences. He'd go in with LeBron when LeBron would do his post game because he knew all the questions would go to LeBron, and that way he wouldn't have to talk as much. So that lack of willingness to be the guy, I think, is one reason that we're not getting that transfer that we all assumed would happen. Yeah. Right? We all assumed LeBron was going to hand off to AD going forward. But A, this option came up, and B, I feel like the Lakers didn't feel comfortable that Anthony Davis could be that guy. You know, I think we realized at one point we thought he could be one of the guys in the league, carry a team to the championship. But, a couple years ago, we realized, you know what, he's 30 years old. This is who he is. This is what we get.
On floor for the Lakers, do you think this is going to work with LeBron and Luka together? I mean, like, I know that there's some redundancies, but also you have two of the best decision makers and most creative players in the history of the sport playing together.
I was going through looking at the, average time of possession per touch for the guys. Luka, I think, has calmed down a little bit in that. Maybe having Kyrie around helped. He used to be way up there, like above James Harden, even in terms of time possession per touch. So I think it can work. I also think back to last year's Olympic team and how it freed LeBron. And the sense I have is when LeBron doesn't have to be the best player on the team, he can be the most valuable. That's what we saw there. So I think LeBron being able to play off the ball, LeBron being able to sit and figure out, I don't have to carry the scoring load. Yeah. I don't have to be the primary ball hand. We don't have to run the offense through me. I feel like that can liberate him, and his job can be easier, and also he can be more valuable because he can just address whatever need the team has. And I think part of that need is he's going to have to be guarding more big men, right?
Yeah.
Like he darted Jokic a little bit during the playoffs last year, and I think we're going to have to see him take on roles like that.
It's like supercharged Draymond, right? Like that's the way that I imagine it best. Like I think Charlie asked the question, but you know the answer, right? Yeah. Like there's no way that that Luka as the ball handler and LeBron as the screen setter, a LeBron pick and roll. Like, okay, you trap Luka out of the pick and roll. Okay, you give it to LeBron, the best decision maker the league's ever seen with a man advantage. Like, okay,
right.
so
like
you
4-on-3 now. Yeah,
you want to sag and give Luka the shot? Like I understand that basketball is a lot more complicated than I'm making it sound, but you create an advantage.
It's really not.
Yeah, it can be sometimes, I guess. Like you create an advantage. I know they'll be weaker on defense without AD and adding a weaker defender player in Luka, but it's going to be really hard to stop them.
And I've always wanted to see
on the wing.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see LeBron play the 95 Magic role, where he's like a power forward who's just so incredible passing in the touches he gets. And so, like, I mean, it's
nice
sort of
reference there, Charlie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Charlie's a sports nerd.
Yeah, love reading the old NBA stuff. But I mean, I just wanted to see him play that role where he gets the ball in different positions and is so unselfish. Because to your point, Jay, that was the thing.
How happy are you that you got Jay's respect? It feel good.
Yeah,
I feel like I stopped listening to the question when Jay gave me the head nod. Charlie
knows the weight in my heart, and that's bringing up old time Lakers stuff, Magic era Lakers in particular.
Yeah. But I mean, that was such an interesting like evolution of the player, and that's like it's really hard when you're the best player of all time or second or third or fourth to have that change. And we've seen LeBron struggle to give up the steering wheel. And this would be a total reimagination of what he can accomplish on the floor. It's really interesting.
If they keep him around.
Yeah.
Right? I do think the door is open that his career finishes up somewhere now because you're right. There is a little bit of redundancy and they could really use a talented big man.
I want to see it though. I want to see their playoff run with both of them on the floor. And if it doesn't work out, then they can reassess after this season. But I want to see it.
You're probably getting 60 between the two of them, which is it's a good start for any playoff series.
Double, triple doubles.
Yeah.
How many double, triple doubles are they going to have?
That's a good question. Look it up. How many times did that even happened?
Russ and Jokic have to be adding them up this year. Do you think there was any thought that Silver thought about vetoing this, going full Stern?
One thing we know. Well, I guess that question is probably better for JA than me, but my guess is no.
Just because we all thought it was a fake trade when we first saw it. And that's when something like that comes across the league desk. I wonder if that sends shockwaves there too.
I mean, as we're taping, I still haven't seen the official word. I mean, I feel like it went through enough that everyone's talking about it. Like Nico Harrison has been out there addressing it like it's a done deal. So I guess they had the trade call with the league and it's gone through if people are out there talking about it. But I still haven't seen the official release.
The way that people talk about Stern was he was a dictatorial commissioner. Mm-hmm. Adam Silver is not, and which is normally the case in professional leagues is they are employees of the owners. So it will require, as it happens in the NFL, oftentimes when they want something to change, it requires enough owners to put the pressure on the commissioner. So that would be the question: are there enough owners who have enough power to influence a shift like this? And the reason why I see it as unlikely is because we're in a period now where I hate to say it, but it feels like 30% of the media conversation about basketball is about what's wrong with basketball. Mm-hmm. This is a time where it feels like the whole conversation is about how cool this is, how crazy it is. It would be kind of shocking to me to take a superstar off of one of the best players in the league, off of one of the most important franchises.
The most famous franchise, period.
Most famous and I guess most important too in that through, aside from the Jordan years, every other boon of NBA history feels like it's connected to them or the Celtics. So you have a chance at returning to the glory days. Nothing about this suggests that they would want to change it.
The other thing is, remember, when Stern vetoed the Chris Paul trade to the Lakers, he was doing so as the acting owner of the Hornets, not as the commissioner of the NBA. He didn't veto it in the best interest of the league as the commissioner. He did so because at the time, the Hornets were a mess, so the NBA had to take over ownership. So he had the power to do so, and he was acting as the de facto owner of the team. So Adam Silver doesn't have that power right now. He can't act as an owner and veto it that way.
Interesting. Yeah, I just thought it clicked in me when you said that they work for the owners. I imagine there have to be several owners who have to be like, you didn't shop Luka to us at all. This seems unfair. This always goes the Lakers' way.
This is way off of the trade, but that's an interesting dynamic in that I think we all would agree that this is good for the league.
Yeah.
But it's bad for
At the start of Super Bowl week, taking over.
But
the only thing, this is maybe the only thing that could have happened to change it from like all Super Bowl news this week until Thursday for the trade deadline.
The thing about it that I was saying is interesting is I think that there has to be in the hearts of some of the owners a pull that's like, this is great for the league, but it's not great for my individual team. So I don't think that. Does that make sense to you, Charlie? Or you just think that they're thinking about their championship window?
Oh, I'm sure they think about both.
Yeah.
I'm sure they think about the best interest of their revenue share and how valuable the league's going to be. But I'm sure they're also pretty competitive, and they own these teams not because they want to win at some point and be like the beloved owner who started winning championships. And Luka's sort of a shortcut to get there.
I don't know. I think they all just want the league to be popping.
The other thing is that, again, they're going to have to stop and ask themselves, did they go too far in attempting to create parity? And again, with this onerous, restrictive collective bargaining agreement that's very punitive for teams that are trying to amass talent and guys on big contracts, and really makes it almost impossible to compete and win by stacking a team that way. And so if it's going to lead to, I think we've weakened the Dallas position, right? You've taken a potential franchise icon away from that team. In parts, I'm just going to assume that part of this is worrying about the implications of what his contract would do to their ability to build the team. We saw the Clippers, right, who've been trying so hard for decades to try to be able to compete with the Lakers. They had to take a step back because of the punitive salary cap. So as we see more and more teams, the fact that Minnesota had to take a step back and deal Karl Anthony Towns when they were on the brink of going to the finals last year. And now that doesn't look like they're going to happen. Why? In part because they couldn't move forward, they felt like, with Towns' contract. So is this what you guys wanted? Because here we are.
Right.
And how's it working out for you all?
It's over for the Clippers and taking LA. It felt like their new arena and the Lakers on the downfall. They had a shot. It's over for you guys.
Every time, and then the fact that the Clippers have been a better team for the better part of the last 15 years, and the Lakers still got in another championship on them.
The last thing I was like, Chris Haynes reported while we were taping that LeBron will be with the Lakers past the trade deadline.
Nice.
So we're going to see some Luka and LeBron in a playoff run because they're 28-19 and careening towards not the play.
Would you wager that he ends his career as a Laker?
Oof. I have no idea what LeBron is thinking.
Especially if it's just one more year.
Yeah.
I feel like
then the salary comes off the books
for more than a year or two with Luka. To the point, I don't know. We'll see.
It depends that maybe they have another pick. If they can get a big or someone who can make it easier for LeBron, I could totally see him staying.
The next time the first time Luka suits up for the Lakers is like appointment television in a way that like the last time I put on my calendar a basketball game that I deliberately wanted to watch was like the Cavs and the Thunder earlier in the season, and then just random Wemby games. This is one where everyone's going to be like, and the eruption that he is going to receive when he shows up in the Laker uniform is going to be pretty cool, and I'm going to choose not to watch when AD gets introduced in Dallas because I don't want to hear that tepid applause.
Some golf claps.
Oh, it's going to break my heart. He's hurt now anyway, right?
Yeah, they're both hurt. Luka's scheduled to come back February 8th, I believe, and then
can't wait. Right before the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Right, it's Saturday before. All right, Jay, am I going to see you in New Orleans?
I'll be down there. I'll see you. We'll get some po' boys and some etouffee and all that good stuff.
All right, I can't wait. Charlie will be with us. We'll have a good time. RJ, appreciate you joining us. The third Hall of Famer we've had on the show, but I guess he's in the most prestigious of them, up there with Champ Bailey and real Hall of Fames, not just show Hall of Fames. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks to all the great producers. I love you, Pavel. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.